Hey there. Tonight, we're taking a slow walk through the Viking world, but not the one from TV shows or sagas full of gods and glory and longboats slicing through misty fjords. No, this is the real Viking world, the quiet, gritty one, the one filled with smoke and scratchy wool and girls who braided their hair while trying not to think about the boys they'd never be allowed to love. This is about what it really felt like to be a young maiden back then. In love, or trying not to be. Surrounded by people yet mostly alone with your thoughts. You probably wouldn't survive long in her shoes. And honestly, she barely did either. Before we begin, if these sleepy little stories help you drift off, I'd love it if you gave this one a like, or hit subscribe if you haven't yet. It really does help more than you think. Let me know where in the world you're listening from, too. Always so lovely seeing people from different corners of the globe curling up to the same quiet stories. Now, dim the lights. Maybe turn on a soft fan for that gentle hum. And let's step into her world together. You're about to wake up as a young maiden in a small Norse farming village, somewhere along the coast of what today we'd call Norway. It's sometime in the 800s. You don't know the exact year. No one does. But it's early morning, and you're already cold. The first thing you feel isn't a thought. It's the scratch of coarse wool against your skin. Your dress is made from homespun sheep's wool, thick and plain. It smells faintly of damp hay and smoke. You slept in it, of course. There's no nightgown, no fresh change. Just this one stiff, heavy dress you wear day after day. You're lying on a rough wooden sleeping bench tucked into the corner of the longhouse, pressed between two sisters who've kicked their legs over your blanket again. The fire burned low overnight, leaving the room chilled. Your breath fogs slightly in front of your face, mixing with the haze of smoke from the hearth. Your toes curl against the cold floorboards, made from hand-sawn pine. There's no rug, just dust, soot, maybe a bit of ash, and the occasional stray feather from the chickens that sometimes wander in through the half-open door. The house smells dense. It's not unpleasant exactly, just thick. Animal fat, sweat, damp wool, a faint iron tang from the cooking pot, and always smoke. The fire pit sits in the center of the room, but the hole in the roof barely lets anything out. Your eyes sting a little, but you're used to it by now. Someone moves nearby, maybe your mother, and the creak of the timber overhead reminds you just how small the longhouse is. 4 families live in here. That's about 20 people. And no walls. There's no such thing as privacy. You're 13. Maybe 14. Old enough to carry water, to herd the goats, to milk the sheep, to help your mother strip sinew from the deer hide your uncle brought back yesterday. And old enough that the village women have started watching you when you speak to boys. Not cruelly, just watching, measuring. You rub your eyes with the side of your hand. Your fingers are already chapped. It's not even deep winter yet. Breakfast is whatever's left over from last night. A piece of barley bread, maybe, heavy and dark and a little hard at the edges. You chew slowly while standing near the fire, a bit of goat cheese, salted fish if you're lucky. Someone stirs a pot of porridge that smells faintly of smoke and old oats. No one really talks much in the morning. There's too much to do. You head outside, the wooden door creaking on its leather hinges. Your shoes are just simple leather wraps tied with strips of hide. They do nothing to keep out the damp. Your feet are cold before you've even stepped off the stone threshold. The air smells of the sea, brine and kelp and wet earth. Somewhere nearby, a gull calls. You squint against the light. Pale gray sky, low clouds, a drizzle that might turn to sleet by afternoon. The grass is slick and trampled, and the path down to the stream is already muddy. You walk that path every morning, down past the goat pen, past the drying racks where fish heads swing in the wind, down to the icy water where you fill the wooden pail for your mother. It's heavy. You spill some on your dress, but no one will notice. Your arms ache already. This is your life, day after day. Water, wool, wood, food. Carry this, fetch that, stir that, scrub that. no school, no books, no quiet place to think. And yet, you do think. Mostly, you think about him. You don't even say his name out loud. You wouldn't dare. But you saw him yesterday. He was repairing a fence near the sheepfold. His hair was tied back with a strip of cloth. His sleeves were rolled up and his hands were strong and quick. He didn't look at you. Why would he? You're just a girl, and he's likely already promised to someone else. But still, you thought about him last night, and you're thinking about him again now, while you bend to scoop out ashes from the hearth, while you churn the butter, while you kneel to scrub the wooden bowls clean with salt and fat and cold water. You wonder what it would be like if he said your name, if he smiled at you just once. But no one ever talks about that kind of thing. Not out loud, not here. Later that day, when your chores are done and your fingers are red and raw from the cold water, you sit by the doorway and watch the mist roll in off the hills. The longhouse smells like boiling cabbage and wool smoke again. Your baby cousin is crying somewhere behind you. Your uncle is sharpening an axe. And across the muddy yard, the boy is walking away down the path toward the woods. He doesn't look back. He never does. But you sit there anyway, sleeves damp, feet numb, heart doing that little fluttery ache it always does when he's nearby. You don't know what to do with the feeling. There's no word for it, no space for it. And you start to wonder, quietly to yourself, if it might be easier just to stop feeling it altogether. Hey, you're still here. I'm glad. We're still walking beside her, that girl from the longhouse, the one with chapped hands and wool under her nails. She doesn't know we're here, of course, but we see her. She's not much older now. Maybe a year has passed, maybe 2. Not that anyone's counting. There are no birthdays, no calendars on the wall, just firewood that needs stacking and sheep that need salting and winters that feel like they go on forever. If you've ever wondered how a girl becomes a woman in a place like this, the answer's simpler than you might think. No grand ceremony, no speech, no asking if she's ready. She just starts braiding her mother's hair instead of the other way around. If you're enjoying the story, maybe tap like or subscribe. It helps this little world stay alive a bit longer. And I'd love to know where you're listening from. Your town, your time zone, the color of the sky outside your window. Always makes this feel more real. All right, let's dim the lights. Let the past pull you back in. You're still here, and it's still cold. The hearth smoke is gentler today. Someone must have cleaned the flue. Or maybe the wind is just better behaved. Either way, your eyes aren't stinging quite as much. The air feels still, almost tender. Your body's sore, but it's a familiar ache now, and that at least is comforting. Outside, frost etches delicate patterns across the slivers of window glass, or rather, the polished horn panes wedged into the wooden frame. They're cloudy and misshapen, but the light sneaks through anyway, catching the edges of your breath. You sit near the fire, bare feet tucked beneath your hem, and slowly, carefully, begin braiding your mother's hair. It's the first time she's let you. She doesn't say anything. She just handed you the comb this morning with her usual quiet nod and turned her back. That's how you know. It's time. Her hair is coarse, streaked with early gray, and smells faintly of soap root and smoke. Your fingers work through it carefully, gently, the way she used to do for you when you were small. It's slow work, and silent. You glance at the frost on the window again. Out there, the goats shift in their pen, the stream's half frozen. You know the path to the water by heart. You've walked it in sun and snow and rain. You could do it blindfolded now. But this is different. Braiding her hair feels like stepping onto a different kind of path, one with no map, no return. Your mother doesn't talk much, but she doesn't need to. She teaches through doing, through watching, through the slight lift of her brow when you're holding the spoon wrong, or the silent tug of your sleeve when it's time to kneel and help stir the blood pudding. You've learned to watch her hands. That's where her real voice lives. In the way she ties a fishing net or knots the ends of a smoked seal bladder to store oil. In how she stirs the stew clockwise, always, even when no one's looking. And now, you're you're watching your own hands, weaving, folding, pulling soft strands over and under. You learned to braid on the rush dolls when you were younger, then on your sisters. But this is different. This matters. This is woman's work. But also something more. It feels like a kind of ceremony, quiet and slow and sacred. You don't ask what it means. No one would answer anyway. Later that day, while your mother is out gathering firewood with your uncle's wife, you stay behind to mind the hearth. A quiet job, but not easy. The coals must stay alive. The soup mustn't boil over. The baby mustn't crawl into the fire pit again. He nearly did last week, and your aunt still hasn't stopped muttering about it. So you sit near the flames, knees drawn up, wool skirts bunched around your ankles, and your fingers, without even thinking, start braiding again. This time, it's your own hair. 3 sections. Over and under. Over and under. You do it slowly, automatically, while staring at the frost on the window pane again. It's melting now. Thin trickles run downward, softening the pattern, blurring the view outside. You can still see the outline of the boy, though. He's chopping wood for the elder's house today. His sleeves are rolled. His cheeks are flushed from the cold. You glance away before he looks up. He still hasn't spoken to you. But your stomach still does that fluttery ache when you hear his laugh across the yard. And you hate that. You hate how it makes you feel weightless and heavy at the same time. You never say his name. You never will. At supper, the table is crowded. Well, it's not really a table, just wide wooden planks across a few barrels, pushed close to the hearth for warmth. Everyone eats in silence, mostly, just slurps and the occasional grunt of approval when the bread isn't burnt. Your father doesn't look at you much. Your brothers are too busy fighting over who gets the last boiled turnip. But your mother glances at your braid, now loosened and slightly frizzy, and gives you the smallest nod. Not quite a smile, but enough. You feel it bloom in your chest, and then fade just as quickly. That night, after everyone has gone quiet and the fire's been banked low, you lie on your sleeping bench with your arms folded across your chest, listening to the soft snore of your uncle and the rhythmic suckling of the baby on the other side of the room. And you think about the things you can't say. You think about how no one ever asks what you want, not out of cruelty. That's just not the point. Wanting, that's not a thing girls get to do here. Not really. You're expected to learn, to observe, to practice patience and silence and the quiet arts of keeping a home warm and a family fed. You're expected to take what's given, to nod when spoken to accept the husband your father chooses for you when the time comes, to care for him, and then the children, and then the aging parents, and then the grave. It's not bleak exactly. That's just how it is. But still, sometimes when you braid your hair at dawn, staring at the frost-laced glass, you catch yourself wondering, what if there had been more? More words, more choices, more space, more warmth that didn't have to be earned through endless obedience. You tuck those thoughts away, quietly, like secrets folded into wool. And you sleep. Still with me? Good. Let's keep going. Because nothing's really changed yet for her, not where it counts. The snow still falls. The longhouse still smells of smoke and sweat and stew. Her days are still quiet and her chores still stretch long across the dim hours of winter. But around her, the world is shifting. The boys are getting taller, louder, hungrier for things far from home. They're going places she'll never see. So if you're listening from a quiet place tonight, maybe your bed, maybe your car after a long day, take a deep breath. Let's slip back in, back to that little coastal farm with its goats and smoke and icy wind. Back to her. Because she's still there, even now. You're still her. And your heart is beginning to ache in ways that have no name. The morning starts like all the others. You're gathering kindling from the edge of the tree line, basket slung over your back, wool cloak itchy at your neck. The frost has begun to lift, and the paths are turning to thick slush beneath your boots. Spring's coming, slow and muddy and full of tiny green promises. Your hands are cold, always. You pass the neighbor's house, the one closest to the water where the slope turns down toward the fjord. Their oldest son is outside today, hammering planks together with smooth, steady strikes. His breath puffs out like smoke, his sleeves are rolled, his hair keeps falling into his eyes. You slow down, just a little. He's building a boat, or helping with one. It's not quite clear. You can see the curved frame of it, propped up on rough stone blocks like some sleeping animal, half-formed. The scent of pitch hangs sharp in the air, mingled with salt and seaweed. You watch him hammer, and feel something twist inside your chest. You know the feeling. It's familiar now. Pointless. He won't stay. None of them do. The boys are getting ready. You've heard them whispering in the mead hall when they think no one is listening, about sails and silver and the promise of warmer lands beyond the waves. Some talk of raiding, some talk of trading, but either way, they'll be gone by summer. You won't be. You'll still be here, spinning thread by the fire, mucking the goat pens, picking lice from your little cousin's hair, watching smoke curl up through the rafters, wishing it would carry you with it. Your days are full but small. You sit near the hearth and spin, fingers rough with lanolin, spindle whirring quietly between your knees. It's soothing in a way, hypnotic. Your thoughts wander as the fibers twist and tighten under your touch. Sometimes, when the sun is just right, the light catches in the fine strands of wool, and for a moment it looks like gold. But it isn't. It's just wool. Everything you touch is just wool or wood or ash or stone. Your world is made of slow things. Outside, the boys are moving fast. They run between houses with ropes and tools, passing messages between uncles and cousins, carrying timber down to the shore in wide-armed bundles. Their hands are nicked and stained, their tunics dark with sweat and sawdust. They laugh, loud and unbothered. You hear it even through the wall. You wish you didn't care. You wish your heart didn't flutter when one of them, maybe him, the neighbor boy, glances your way for half a second, shirt clinging to his chest, brow furrowed with some private focus you'll never be allowed to understand. But it does. And it's maddening. Not because you love him, you don't even know him, not really, but because he gets to leave, to do, to want, and you don't. You weren't told this directly, of course. No one sat you down and said, "You can't go." They didn't need to. It's just known. Girls stay behind. Girls spin thread, feed goats, patch tunics, wash bowls, wring out bloodied linens, whisper lullabies to screaming babies when the men are gone. Girls don't build boats. Girls don't follow the tide. Girls don't swing axes for treasure in Frankish ports or climb rocky hills in strange islands you can't pronounce. You wouldn't even know how. And even if you did, well, who would watch the goats? There's a goat screaming outside. You sigh, set your spindle down, and go see what the fuss is. Turns out one's gotten her leg stuck in the fence again. You free her with numb fingers, scold her gently, and push her back toward the others. As you walk past the neighbor's yard again, the boat is taking shape. You hear the neighbor boy's voice, low and steady, as he argues with his father about how the planks are joining. You want to stay and watch. You don't. You look away. Keep walking. Back to the fire. Back to the spinning. That evening, your cousin throws a tantrum and refuses to eat. Your mother makes you hold her while she scrapes fish bits into a wooden bowl and gently coaxes her open-mouthed like a bird. The fish is cold. Everything smells of salt and sweat. Later, after everyone's eaten and the sky turns pale lavender, you sit at the edge of the hill and look down at the fjord. The water glitters, quiet and endless. The boat is there now, half covered with a wool sheet. The boy is gone. The hammer is still. You wonder where he'll go, if he'll remember to bring warm socks, if he'll be back before the harvest. You wonder if you'll still feel this way when he's gone. Probably not. That's the thing. It's not really him. It's what he gets to have. Freedom. Direction A. Future with more than one path. Your father once told you that girls were like hearthstones, solid, warm, dependable. Boys were like kindling, wild and hot and gone too quickly. He meant it as a compliment. You tried to take it that way. But you remember how your stomach twisted, even then. Because who wants to be a stone? That night, while everyone sleeps, you lie awake listening to the wind. It whistles through the cracks in the wall, brushing against your cheek like the softest breath. Like a secret. You imagine the sea. Big and black and full of stars. You imagine the boat rising and falling with the waves, carrying the boys farther than you'll ever go. You imagine being on it, not with him, just alone. Just you. Standing at the bow with your arms spread wide, hair unbraided, salt on your tongue, no one telling you what to do or who to be. The image flickers like firelight behind your eyelids. And then it's gone. You've been taught what love is. You've seen it, tucked away between the longhouses' smoky beams, in the steady gaze between mother and father, in the quiet hum of them working side by side. But it's never been about you, not really. It's a transaction, a deal, something to be negotiated when the time comes, like everything else in your world. Today, you're fetching water from the well again, as you always do. Your arms ache already, the familiar burn setting in as the heavy bucket pulls you down. Your hair is braided tight against your scalp, and you can feel the rough tug of it with each step you take. You know the weight of the morning before it even begins, the same weight you carry every day, but today it feels heavier somehow. It's a slow walk, the buckets sloshing, filling the silence. The others are busy. The goats need feeding, the fire needs stoking. Your father is outside working with the few tools that seem to constantly break in the middle of chores. Your mother is inside, scraping fish or making bread. Everything is always in motion, but you're not. You're just fetching water, always fetching. But today, something shifts. You can't see it, but you can feel it in the air. It has that distinct quality, that sense that something's already been decided. You don't know what, but it doesn't matter. It's been decided. Later, when you return, the house is fuller. Not just with the usual smell of stew and smoke, but with the unmistakable scent of a visitor. Someone important. You pause just inside the doorway, listening. It's your father's voice, low and measured, but the words aren't clear. You feel something tighten in your chest, but you can't say why. You set the bucket down, quietly. The visitor is a man, older than your father, with a beard that touches his chest. His clothing is finer than most, wool dyed dark with a fur cloak draped over his shoulders. He smells like salt and horses and men who have been on the road for far too long. You don't know him. Your father speaks to him with respect, which means this man is someone to be reckoned with. And then you hear it. I've come for the girl. The words fall into the room like stones in a deep well. You freeze. It's not a surprise, really. You knew, deep down, this day would come. But it feels too soon, too abrupt. Your heart lurches in your chest, and for the first time, you wish you could vanish. The words float through the smoke like a curse. Your father's voice is calm. She's of age, he says, as if he's been waiting for this moment, as if it's only natural. You swallow hard. Of age. Just a few years ago, you were still a child, a girl, not even a woman. You weren't ready for this. You weren't ready to be spoken for. But none of that matters. You're not the one making the decisions. The man with the beard turns to you. His gaze is hard, unreadable. You know that he's come with an offer. You don't need to be told what it is. You've seen it before, in the way men negotiate with each other over cattle, land, and slaves. It's always about the exchange. Always about what's worth what. Your future has a price tag, and it's already been set. No one's even asked what you think. Later that evening, you sit by the fire, trying to focus on your spinning, but the spindle is slipping in your fingers. It's hard to concentrate. Your mind keeps turning back to the conversation you overheard, like the slow churn of a millstone. The visitor's words echo in your head. "I've come for the girl." Your world feels too small now, like the walls of the longhouse are closing in around you. You glance up at your mother, who's kneading dough, the same movements she's always made. You want to say something, to ask her if she ever felt this way, but you don't. You don't want to know the answer. Instead, you wait for your father's voice. It comes. "She's a good match," he says, his words falling between your mother's steady motions. "Her future is secure." Secure. That's all it is. Just a future. A future where you don't get to choose anything, not even your own love. The next morning, everything is the same. The snow still clings to the roofs and the wind still whispers through the trees, carrying with it the distant rumble of the fjord. You go to the well again. Your body moves automatically, muscles aching with the familiarity of the task. But today, you can't stop thinking about what's been said. Your father's words, the visitor's words. They've settled over you like a cloak, heavy and suffocating. You glance toward the shoreline as you walk. The boats are still there, half finished, waiting for the boys to take them out to sea. You imagine what it would be like to sail, to be free, to be wanted for something other than a barter. Something other than your father's good name and the cows in the field. But that's not your future. Not anymore. You're already promised to someone, even though you haven't even looked him in the eyes. Later, as the sun sinks low in the sky, the man with the beard returns, but this time he's not alone. He brings a gift, wrapped in heavy wool and tied with a leather cord. The gift isn't for you, though. It's for your father. It's a cow, a fine one, its coat dark and glossy, eyes bright and wide. It's not about you. It never was. It's about what you're worth. You sit at the hearth, pretending to work, your hands numb with the strain of trying not to show how much it hurts. You don't know if he's the one your father has chosen for you, but it hardly matters. You'll be given away anyway. By the time the cows are settled in the barn and the fire has burned low, your father's deal is done. You're promised. Not to a man who made your heart flutter with a glance. Not to a boy you watched building a boat. Not to anyone who could make you feel like you matter. Your future is sealed in livestock. And you wonder, as you stare into the fire, if love will ever mean anything more than that. The longhouse hums with life, but the kind of life that doesn't speak. There's no room for it, no space for words like crush or lonely. The silence between you and the others is thick, suffocating in its unspoken understanding that your place is not to feel, not to question. You don't need words for those things. Your life is full of actions, not thoughts. You sit by the hearth, weaving thread into cloth, your hands moving in the rhythm of years. Your fingers are calloused, worn from the endless task of turning wool into something useful, something you can trade or give away, something that can be counted. But there's nothing here for you. Nothing but the steady, mechanical movements that fill the space between the moments of stillness. You don't know how to say it. Even if you wanted to, you wouldn't know the words. Words like crush or love are as foreign to you as the lands beyond the fjords. No one speaks of such things. There is no room for soft, messy emotions here. Only duties, only labor. Your mother sits beside you, her fingers flying over the wool, each thread pulled through with the same practiced grace. She doesn't look at you as she works, and you don't look at her. The silence between you both is a thing you've grown used to, as constant as the wind in the trees. You wonder if she ever felt the things you feel, the longing, the wondering. But you don't ask. You know better. Out of the corner of your eye, you catch sight of the boy, the one you once watched from the window hammering wood, his muscles flexing under the strain of the work. He's there again today, outside, working with his father on the boat. The rhythm of his hammering echoes across the yard. But you don't look up. You can't. If you do, your heart will betray you. You wonder if he knows, if he feels the same way. But you don't ask. You never do, because there's no language for it. There's no word for the way your chest tightens when you see him. There's no word for the feeling that rises in your throat, thick and heavy, when you imagine him looking at you. There's no space for that kind of softness. Only silence, and silence speaks louder than anything you could say. Later, you take your usual walk to the well. The cold bites at your skin, and you pull your shawl tighter around your shoulders. The wind cuts through the trees, but you hardly notice. You're too lost in the quiet ache inside you. You glance up at the sky, the gray clouds moving lazily above you. The air smells faintly of salt and pine. The world is still, too still. And yet the quiet doesn't comfort you. It makes your heart ache more. As you reach the well, you see him again, the boy. This time he's with his father, their backs to you as they work with the boat. The sight of him makes your heart stumble in your chest, but you don't let it show. You drop the bucket down into the well, the rope creaking as it descends into the dark water below. It's a simple task, but today it feels heavier than usual. The rope seems thicker, the pull harder. Maybe it's just the cold. Maybe it's just the weight of everything you're carrying inside. You turn your face to the wind, hoping the chill will numb the ache inside you. But it doesn't. It only makes it sharper, more real, more unbearable. You make your way back to the longhouse, the bucket swaying against your leg. When you return, your mother is still sitting by the fire, still weaving, her face a mask of quiet concentration. Your father is at the table, sharpening his knife with the familiar scrape of stone against metal. No one speaks. It's the same as always. The air is thick with things left unsaid. The spaces between you and the others are full of meaning, but none of it is spoken aloud. You wonder if they feel it too, the silence that holds everything in place, or if they've simply learned to live with it, like you have. That night, after the meal is done and the fire is dying down, you lie on your mattress, staring up at the ceiling. The crackling of the fire fills the space, but it's just noise. The real sound is the beating of your heart, the rhythm of longing you can't escape. You close your eyes, imagining a different life. A life where you're not just the daughter, the one who fetches water and spins thread. A life where someone looks at you and sees more than just a prize to be won, a future to be secured. You imagine being seen for who you are, for what you feel, for what you want. But that's not your life. In the morning, everything is the same again. You wake to the smell of bread baking and the sound of your father's boots on the floorboards. The world outside the longhouse is cold and gray, but inside everything is warm and still. You can hear the quiet hum of your mother's movements as she goes about her work, the soft scrape of her hands on the dough, the steady rhythm of her life. You pick up your spindle again, spinning the thread into something useful, something that can be counted. But today it feels different. The task, the endless task of creating something from nothing, feels like it will never end. You wonder if this is all you'll ever be, a pair of hands, spinning thread and weaving cloth. The thought sinks into you like the weight of stone, and you want to scream, but you don't. You just keep spinning. And in the silence, you long for something you can't name. You long for the boy who hammers wood in the yard, who doesn't even know you're watching. You long for the freedom you'll never have. You long for a life where your feelings are your own, where you can speak the things you're forced to keep hidden. But you don't say it. There's no language for it. The day goes on, as it always does. The goats are fed, the fire is stoked, the thread is spun. The work is endless, the silence heavier with each passing hour. You wonder if anyone else feels the way you do, if anyone else has that same ache, that same gnawing feeling that they're trapped in a life they didn't choose. But you don't ask, because you know the answer. No one else is asking either. It's strange how you start to notice things only after the hope has gone a little quiet in your chest. At first, when you were younger, you thought the women in your life were just private, not cold, just reserved. Maybe they were keeping their stories tucked away like treasures. Maybe they had felt the same heart-fluttering pull toward someone once, and just didn't talk about it. But you're older now, and now you understand that the stories were never there to begin with. You're sitting in the longhouse again, just like always. The hearth crackles softly in front of you, and the wool in your lap is warm from your hands. Your mother is there, as she always is. Her hands move with practiced ease, braiding a strip of fabric into something useful, binding it into form without ever really thinking. Your aunt is nearby, shelling dried beans into a wooden bowl, her thick fingers working slowly, her back stiff from years bent over fires and fields. And your sister, not much older than you but already married and round with her second child, is dozing lightly, one hand resting on her swollen belly. The room is quiet, except for the fire and the gentle sounds of women doing what they've always done, work. Endlessly, without complaint. No one tells stories of love, not here. They talk about weather mostly, about how the snow is likely to come early this year, and how the stores of smoked fish might not stretch as far as they'd hoped. They talk about the dye batch going sour, or how the neighbor's goat is sick. Sometimes they share little jokes. Your aunt makes one about a man in the next village who was kicked by his own pig, not in a cruel way, just dry and amused. Everyone chuckles for a moment, and then the silence returns like it always does. You look around the room and suddenly see it all differently. They are kind women, loving in their own quiet, burdened way. But they are tired, tired in their bones, tired behind their eyes. You can see it now. The life has been lived around them, not through them. Their names were never carved into anyone's dreams. It takes a few days for you to gather the courage to ask your mother, not directly, never directly. You know better than that. But one morning, while you're helping her grind grain into flour, you let your question slip out sideways. "Did you ever know him before?" you ask, pretending to focus on the grindstone. "Father, I mean." She looks at you, startled for half a second. Then she shrugs, wiping her hands on her apron. "Not really," she says. "He lived 2 farms over. My father knew his father." And that's it. That's the whole story. No memory of the first glance, no whispered confessions, no aching tenderness. Just 2 fathers, 2 farms, a practical solution. Your mother must see something shift in your face because she softens a little. "He was a good man," she adds, like that should be enough. "He brought meat in winter. He didn't drink too much." You nod. Because that's what you're supposed to do. Because being provided for is more important than being loved. That's the way it works. That's the way it's always worked. Still, something inside you sinks a little lower, because you can tell she wasn't trying to be cruel. She was being honest. Love was never part of the equation. Later that day, you find yourself beside your sister, helping her patch a worn spot in her baby's wrap. She's resting again, her feet swollen, her back aching. She doesn't complain, just winces now and then laughs it off. She's young, but her voice already has that same tired edge you've heard in the others. You ask her how she knew it was time to marry. "I didn't," she says, smiling faintly. "Father said it was a good match. He had land, 2 cows, that was enough." "But did you want to?" The question slips out before you can stop it. Your sister looks down at the fabric in her lap. Her fingers pause for a moment. "I didn't not want to," she says quietly. "I didn't think about it that much. You don't. You don't ask again. Because now you understand. None of them were in love either. Your mother, your sister, your aunt, who hums softly to herself as she kneads dough, her hands cracked and red from decades of hard water. Your cousins, who married as soon as they bled, just like everyone else. Even your grandmother, now gone, who used to sit by the fire and tell stories of the old days. Not her own days, of course, but the sagas, the legends. They had love, the women in those stories. Love was for sagas, not kitchens. And oh, the sagas. You remember being small, curled under a wool blanket while your grandmother's voice filled the dark corners of the longhouse. Stories of shield maidens with fire in their veins, women who defied kings and followed their hearts, who rode into battle for the ones they loved. You used to believe in those stories. You used to think that might be you someday. Fierce, bold, swept away by something bigger than a father's livestock bargain. But now you know better. Those stories were never about girls like you. In the kitchen, you pour water into the cooking pot, watching the steam rise as it begins to bubble. You stir it slowly, your thoughts heavier than the spoon in your hand. You think about your cousin Runa, who married at 14. She cried once in the goat barn when she thought no one could hear. You were 10 at the time, and you didn't understand what it meant. You do now. She never talked about it again. Just adjusted, got on with it, like everyone else. You wonder sometimes what might have happened if things had been different, if a girl had been allowed to choose, if your life was something you could shape with your own hands, like wool on a loom. You imagine the boy again, the one with the strong hands and the quiet eyes, the one who never looked your way, not really, but who made your heart twist anyway. What would you say to him if you could? What would it feel like to be chosen not because of your family's goats, but because of your laugh, your thoughts, your dreams? But that's not how things work here. That's not how things ever worked. When you lie in bed that night, the quiet is heavier than usual. You think of your mother and how she never said the word love. Not once, not even in passing. You think of your sister, already growing into that same careful silence. You think of your aunt, who once sewed your doll's apron when you tore it, and who never smiled at your uncle, not once that you can remember. You think of all the women who came before you, strong and silent, moving through their days with grace and resignation, doing what had to be done, endlessly, quietly, without asking why. And you feel it deep in your bones, that same tiredness. It's settling into you now, a slow ache that wraps itself around your ribs, not from work, but from knowing that no one ever asked them what they wanted, knowing that no one will ask you either. You don't get out of the longhouse much, not really, but sometimes, maybe once every moon or so, your mother brings you along when she goes to the market. Not to enjoy it, of course. You're not there to linger or explore or get into trouble. You're there to help carry things, to fetch salt or fish or thread, to keep your eyes down and your hands busy. That's all. But still, it's something. The market isn't far, just beyond the trees, down the muddy track that leads toward the fjord, where boats come in heavy with cod or herring and merchants barter for bundles of flax or fur. It's not grand. It's not like the markets in the stories, where silk hangs from tents and music fills the air. No, this one is smaller. A row of wooden stalls, some patched with canvas, some just rough carts set up in the dirt. The smell hits you first, always the fish, salty, sharp, and sour at the same time. Even in winter, it hangs in the air, clinging to the backs of your teeth. And underneath that, sweat, mud, a hint of old cabbage, sometimes wood smoke, sometimes worse. It's not pleasant, but it's alive. And that's something. When you were younger, it used to excite you, the bustle, the people, the chance to see faces that didn't belong to your family, women from neighboring farms, merchants from faraway settlements, boys running messages or chasing chickens, shouting in half-formed voices as they skidded across the frozen mud. You don't run anymore. Not now. You walk behind your mother, your cloak pulled close, your feet careful. You carry the basket. You nod when told. You keep your mouth shut. But your eyes are still yours. There's something about the market that makes you feel like maybe, just maybe, life could change here. Like something might shift in the space between the stalls and the gossip, like someone might notice you, not as a daughter or a sister or a future wife, but as you. It hasn't happened yet, but the possibility of it clings to the air almost as much as the fish stink. Your mother barters with a woman who sells dried herbs, arguing gently over the price of thyme and nettle. You half listen, half drift. You don't wander far, just a few steps back toward the edge of a stall with bolts of cloth piled in careful rows. blues and browns, and a single piece of red linen, so bright it hurts your eyes. And that's when you see him. It happens so fast you almost don't believe it. He's across the lane, not 20 paces away, holding a small crate of nails, speaking to an older man you don't recognize. His hood is down, his hair wind-tossed. You know that hair. You know those shoulders. That boy. You've watched him split timber and carve boat ribs in his father's yard. The one with the strong hands and the quiet, steady eyes. He looks different here. Older, maybe. A little taller than you remembered. His cheek scraped where he must have cut himself shaving, or maybe working with a blade. His lips are chapped. His brow is drawn. You forget the fish. You forget your mother. For half a heartbeat, you forget to breathe. And then he looks up. It's a flicker. Just a second, maybe two. His eyes meet yours. Not a glance that slides past, like so many others. Not the dismissive look men give to girls who haven't yet been claimed. He sees you. His gaze lands and stays, soft and uncertain. And just like that, your entire chest becomes a single pulse of maybe. But you don't smile. You don't nod. You don't even blink. Because you're not allowed to. You can't speak to him. You're not supposed to be seen. You're supposed to look away, now, before someone else notices, before your mother turns her head, before some neighbor sees your cheeks warming and reports it back with a smirk over stew. So you drop your gaze, quick and careful, heart hammering like a fish caught in a bucket. When you dare to look up again, he's gone. Your mother calls you back to her side. She doesn't notice your flushed face or the way your fingers tighten around the basket. She's too busy inspecting a coil of wool and arguing over its quality. You nod along, say nothing. The words you want to say don't exist anyway. There's no word for. He looked at me in the way you meant it. No word for maybe he wondered what my voice sounds like. No word for what if in the language your world allows. There's only silence and wool and the weight of a basket full of roots. On the walk home, you say nothing. Neither does your mother. The wind is sharp across the path, tugging at your cloak, carrying the market smells back toward the sea. You try to remember his face exactly, where the light hit, how long his eyes lingered. But it's already slipping, blurring like something half seen in a dream. You want to ask your mother if she ever felt it too, that flutter, that ache, that moment when someone looks at you and your whole body forgets how to belong to itself. But you don't ask, because you already know the answer. Back at the longhouse, the fire is low. Your sister is tending the pot, stirring quietly. Your aunt is mending something again. The rhythm resumes, the same as it always is. You set down the basket, unwrap the fish, begin rinsing vegetables without being asked. Life continues. Nothing changed. And yet, that night, in your bed, you lie awake longer than usual, listening to the distant sound of wind scraping against the wooden beams, imagining a version of the world where you might have smiled, might have said hello, might have asked what he was building next. Instead, all you have is that one glance, 1 second, in a place that smelled like fish and disappointment. You hold it close anyway, because it's all you'll ever get. The thing about betrothal is, you don't get a say. Not really. There's no announcement like in the sagas. No string of hearts carved in wood. No moment where someone drops to one knee in the middle of a windswept field. There's no candlelit evening or secret kiss or stolen promise beneath the stars. There's just a murmur at the fire, a nod, a conversation held too low for you to hear all the words. And then one day your mother says, "You'll be wed before the next frost." That's it. No one asks you how you feel. No one wonders aloud whether you're ready. Your age doesn't matter. You're 15 now. Your hips have widened, your cycle is regular, and your hands have already been trained to carry and stir and mend. That's all that counts. You are no longer a child. You are a vessel, a future hearth, a link in a long line of decisions made without love. They say he's a good match, and maybe he is. He owns land. He's not so old. maybe 21 or 22, which counts as practically ideal. He doesn't drink too much. He doesn't beat his goats. He's strong enough to carry a barrel of salt by himself, and quiet enough that people say steady when they speak of him. You've seen him a few times, mostly from a distance. He has a wide nose and a slow smile, though you can't remember ever seeing it pointed at you. He's not cruel, but he's not kind either. He just is. You tell your mother you're happy. You say it softly, eyes lowered, trying to match your tone to the ones the women around you used when they were married off. Trying to sound pleased, but not too pleased. Hopeful, but not silly. Modest, not reluctant. It's a very specific script. You've heard it enough to know your lines. It's a good match, you say. I'm lucky, you say. He seems strong, you say. I'll do my duty, you say. What you don't say is, I wish it were someone else. What you don't say is, I wish it weren't anyone at all. What you don't say is, I'm scared. Preparations begin immediately. There's no time to waste. He came to an agreement with your father just last week, and the dowry's already being sorted. 2 goats, a woven blanket, a box of iron nails. Your mother is fixing up an old dress to make it look newer. Your aunts are gathering herbs for wedding bread. You're not asked what kind of ceremony you'd like. No one cares if you want braids or loose hair, feathers or flowers. There's a veil somewhere in a chest that your cousin wore last spring. That'll do just fine. You're not special. This isn't about you. In the evenings, the older women talk around the fire. They tell stories about their own weddings, but they keep it light. Funnier stories, mostly. About spilled wine or missing shoes, or how they didn't bleed until the second night and their mothers-in-law almost fainted. Everyone laughs politely. You smile when they look at you. But inside, your chest is folding in on itself. He comes to visit once. It's the polite thing to do, to sit with your family, eat fish stew, and make a few bland comments about the weather. He doesn't speak much, doesn't ask you anything, doesn't look at you for long. You sit across the fire from him, hands clenched in your lap, nodding when he says something about how the fjord's been freezing early this year. Your father chuckles and agrees. Your brother asks if he'll be helping with the salt barrels soon. Your mother keeps fussing with the stew. No one notices that you haven't spoken in over 20 minutes. No one minds. After he leaves, your father says, he'll make a fine husband. Your mother nods. He'll provide. That's what matters. Your little sister asks if she can wear flowers in your hair on the wedding day. You say yes, of course, and then you go outside to check the chickens, even though they don't need checking, even though it's dark, even though it's cold, because if you stay inside a moment longer, you might cry, and you don't want to do that. Not because anyone would be angry, but because it would embarrass them. Make them sigh. Make them remind you, again, that you're lucky, that many girls would be grateful, that some never marry at all. In bed that night, you lie awake and think about the boy from the market. You know his name. You've known it for years. You mouth it silently into the dark as if it might warm you somehow. As if his name alone could stand against the weight of what's coming. You think about his hands, stained with pine pitch. About how he looked at you, really looked at you. That one time. You wonder if he knows you're being wed. You wonder if he'll care. You wonder if anyone ever told him that what you felt might have mattered if things were different. But of course they didn't, because it doesn't. The wedding is in 5 weeks. People begin to congratulate you. Women at the market nod with half smiles. He'll make a solid roof, one says. A good provider, another nods. No one mentions love. No one asks what you wanted. Because of course, you didn't want anything. Wanting is not part of the equation. Your mother was never in love. Neither was her sister, or her mother before her. Love is something for sagas and songs, for dreamers and fools. It's not something real girls in real villages waste time hoping for. Real girls fetch water. Real girls cook and sew and marry who they're told. Real girls learn to smile when their betrothal is announced. So you do. There's a feast being prepared in your name. Barley loaves, smoked lamb, ale warmed over the fire. Your aunt is seasoning fish with salt and juniper berries, and your mother has been plucking feathers from a goose since before dawn. The cabin smells like wet fur and herbs and meat fat, all stirred together in the thick winter air. Outside, someone's sharpening blades. Someone else is laughing, too loud, too long. You can hear the wooden bowls clinking as the neighbors stack them on a long board. The goats have been penned far away so they won't bleat during the vows. Everything is set. Everything is perfect. Everyone is smiling. Except you. Your wedding dress isn't really a dress. It's a patched-up tunic, dyed dull red and layered over 2 woolen shifts. The sleeves are long and rough. The neckline itches. A decorative brooch, borrowed, pins the front closed. You wear your hair down, braided loosely with bits of ribbon that your sister tied in with shaking fingers. She cried when she saw you in it. You didn't. You just stood still and let her cry. They say you're radiant. The older women nod and murmur, "Lovely bride, lovely bride." Your father pats your shoulder with a grunt of approval. Your mother squeezes your arm once, too tightly, then turns away before you can read her expression. You know what they see. Not a girl, not even a person, a bargain, fulfilled. 2 goats, 1 woven blanket, half a barrel of herring, exchanged for a daughter, a future, an alliance. A promise that the land between your father's field and your husband's will remain peaceful. You are the ribbon tying it all together. No one calls it a transaction. They call it tradition. They call it holy. They call it joy. The ceremony takes place by the central hearth, with pine branches laid out to mask the smell of damp wood. You and your soon-to-be husband kneel while the Gothi, the local priest, says words that feel both ancient and hollow. They speak of Freya and Frigg, of home and hearth and children yet to be born. You nod at the right times. You take his hand when prompted. You don't look at his face, not because you're afraid, not exactly, but because you don't want to see what isn't there. There is no love in this room. There is respect, maybe, duty, routine. There is pride in your father's posture and hunger in your cousin's eyes as he eyes the roast meat being carried in. There's the hushed giggle of your youngest sister, still too small to understand what marriage really means. But no one here is aching. No one here is in love. Except maybe you, foolishly, quietly, with someone who isn't even present. You think of him just once during the ceremony. The neighbor boy with the quiet voice and the sea-wind hair. The one who fixed his father's boat with his bare hands. The one who saw you at the market and held your gaze for a second too long. You never spoke. You never touched. You never even learned if he felt the same. And now you never will. Someone presses a fur cloak around your shoulders. A bridal gift from his family. Thick brown wool lined with fox fur and heavy with meaning. You thank them. You smile. You don't cry. Crying would be rude. Crying would make a scene. The feast begins, and your place is beside him now. He eats like a man who hasn't had meat in weeks, quickly, silently, without looking at you. He thanks your mother for the bread. He nods at your brother. He answers questions with short, practical sentences. Everyone admires his manners. He'll make a strong house, someone says. Her children will be well fed, someone else adds. Your father beams, proud of the deal he made. You sit there, chewing your food until it's soft enough to swallow without choking. You feel the fur cloak heavy on your shoulders and try not to shiver. When the songs begin, your cousin starts a round of hand clapping. Someone lifts a cup to toast you. A neighbor boy, not that one, not the one who haunts your thoughts, stumbles forward with a slosh of ale and shouts, "To the bride and groom!" Everyone cheers. You raise your cup because you're supposed to. He leans over and murmurs in your ear, "You'll be fine." He's not cruel, and that's supposed to be a comfort. That's the bar. As the evening wears on, the candles burn low. The stew pot is scraped empty. The old men start falling asleep at the table, heads heavy with drink. Laughter fills the room like smoke. And you just sit. In the red tunic, in the borrowed brooch, in the marriage you didn't ask for. He places a hand gently on your back. Not possessive, not unkind, just a quiet reminder that this is your new life now. This is it. Later, the fire crackles low as the room empties. Your mother helps you pack a small bag, thread, comb, folded linen. She doesn't look you in the eye. She doesn't say much. She just wraps your fingers around a wooden hairpin, whispers, "You'll need this," and steps back. There's a moment where she almost says more, but she doesn't, because what is there to say? Her own wedding probably looked just like this. So did her sister's. So will your cousins next spring. There's no tragedy here, no surprise, just the slow, inevitable turn of the wheel. You walk through the village for the last time as a daughter. The cold nips your ankles, but you don't feel it. The sky is dark, the stars don't care. He walks beside you, not close, not distant, just there. When you reach his home, your home now, he opens the door for you. Inside, it smells like wood smoke and something earthy. There's a rug by the fire, a single carved chair, a shelf with dried herbs and old tools. It's not much, but it's yours now. You sit down slowly on the edge of the bed. He says your name once, just to get your attention. You look up. He doesn't smile exactly, but his eyes soften. "I'll be good to you," he says. And you nod. Because what else can you do? The fire flickers low. You lie down beside him. Your hands are still. And somewhere, not far, not close, the wind stirs over the fjord. Maybe he's out there, the one you loved. Maybe he looked up at the stars tonight and thought of you. Maybe he doesn't know you're gone. Or maybe he does, and maybe, just maybe, he stayed away from the feast because it would have hurt too much to see you dressed in someone else's furs. But none of that matters now, because you never kissed him, and you never will. You smile. You practice being thrilled. You carry your new spindle around and act like you're planning the design for your wedding cloth, even though all you can manage are tight, uneven stitches. You eat when you're told. Sit when you're told. Speak only when spoken to. You do all the right things. You are a good girl. You are a bride-to-be. And in your quietest moments, when no one is looking, you whisper, "I wish I could have chosen." But even that is a dangerous wish. So you say it only once, and then you bury it deep. The furs were still warm from so many bodies when she slipped beneath them that first night. Not warm with comfort, just heat, like livestock packed close in a barn. Her husband, was beside her. A shadow, a shape. They'd danced, or at least stood awkwardly during the feast. His beard had bits of roast goat stuck in it. He had laughed loudly with the men. Not once had he looked her in the eyes. Now they lay side by side, and the silence was enormous. Her breath curled up in little clouds, even under all those blankets. The fire in the center of the hall crackled, but it couldn't reach the corners of the bed platform. She didn't say anything. He didn't either. By the second night, she knew how it would go. She would undress quickly under the weight of wool and watching eyes. Privacy wasn't a thing in these longhouses, just heavy curtains and the unspoken rule to look away. She'd lie back down in the bed they now shared, fold her hands over her belly, and wait. Or not wait. Waiting implies choice. Just brace. He was never unkind, exactly. He didn't hit her or yell. He didn't stink of too much mead or demand anything unusual. He did what men were expected to do. So did she. And in the morning she rose early to make porridge, her hands still sore from the night before. No one asked how she slept. That wasn't a question Viking women got. Marriage wasn't supposed to be romantic. Everyone said so. The women told her with the same tired shrug they used for every other truth she'd slowly learned. Of course it hurts. Of course you don't love him. You'll get used to it. They always said that part last, like pain could be something you could wear down, like a rock under the sea. You'll get used to it. She didn't. Not really. The days blurred into one another. She kept the hearth hot, spun wool in careful circles, fed chickens, salted fish, scraped the hides of rabbits. She swept and folded and kneaded and stitched. Her hands never stopped moving. That helped a little. If they moved fast enough, her mind didn't wander too far. She slept with her back to him. Most nights he didn't notice, or didn't care. Sometimes she cried, but only after he'd started snoring, quietly. So quietly. Just one small pillow pressed to her face to muffle it all. Outside the longhouse, the world spun on. Gray skies, sheep nibbling on frost-bitten grass, the sea moaning softly just beyond the tree line. She saw the boy from before once, the one who carved boats, the one who smiled crooked, the one whose name she had never said aloud, not even to herself. He passed through the market, older now, broader in the shoulders, sun-wrinkled from time on the water. He carried 3 fish and didn't look her way. Of course he didn't. She stood beside her husband, counting eggs. And the boy? He vanished back into the crowd like a sea breeze, here, then gone. The months rolled forward. When it snowed, she hauled buckets of it inside to melt for washing. When it rained, she sealed the roof with pitch. When her mother-in-law fell sick, she spooned broth into the old woman's mouth and cleaned up the waste that followed. She wasn't praised. No one said thank you. She just did it. That was the thing about being a good Viking wife. You didn't need anyone to notice. You just needed to endure. Sometimes she thought about the sagas, those long, winding stories the men told over mead, of shield maidens who fell in love with warriors, of secret kisses beneath waterfalls, of carved runes left on stones for someone to find. But those were for them, for poets and sailors and girls who didn't live in kitchens. No one carved runes for women who made butter and scraped floors. No one wrote songs about wives who stitched furs and counted sacks of barley. No one fell in love with her. And still, the cold crept in each night. No matter how well she packed the thatch, no matter how many layers of wool she wore, no matter how tightly she wrapped the baby one day, because yes, of course there would be a baby eventually. Not for love, not for longing, just because that's what came next. Because it always came next. She would name the baby after someone else's grandmother. She would wake up every 2 hours to feed it. She would love it fiercely, with a kind of aching, protective desperation. But even then, there would be moments when the baby slept soundly and the fire crackled low and her husband rolled over, muttering nonsense in his sleep, that she'd lie there, staring at the beams above her and think, is this it? Is this all there ever was? She never said it out loud. There weren't words for that kind of question, not in the language she'd learned from her mother, who had learned it from hers. No Viking maiden asked for passion. They asked for enough barley to last the winter, a husband who didn't hit, children who didn't die young. She had those things. So she was lucky, wasn't she? Cold nights, warm duties. That was the rhythm of her life now. The things she did were quiet, proper, expected. And the things she felt? Well, those stayed tucked inside, folded up and hidden, like a scrap of red thread in the bottom of a wooden chest. Unseen, but always there. Hey again, still awake? Or maybe you dozed off for a bit and stirred back to the sound of your fan or the street light casting quiet shadows across your room. No worries. We're picking up where we left off, deep in a world where time moved differently and love didn't always come in soft packages. Our Viking girl, the one you met back when she was just learning how to braid her mother's hair. She's older now. Not old by any modern sense of the word. But in her world, where winters are long and childbirth is longer, She's aging the way bread turns hard in a wooden bowl. Quietly, unevenly, all at once. And tonight, she's pregnant. Again. It doesn't start with a ceremony or a burst of joy, or one of those moments where someone runs with a hand to their mouth, cheeks flushed in realization. It starts with a slow nausea that hangs behind her morning chores like a shadow. The milk turns her stomach. Her favorite porridge smells wrong. She's suddenly too tired to spin flax for more than an hour at a time. Her wrists ache. Her lower back has that dull, dragging pull she remembers from the last time, and the time before that. By now, she doesn't need a wise woman or elder to confirm it. Her body has become a chart, a pattern, a prophecy repeating itself. She's with child, and she hasn't even stopped bleeding from the last one for all that long. There's no fuss made over the announcement. There usually isn't anymore. Maybe her husband looks up from repairing a leather strap and nods just once. Maybe her mother-in-law offers a wordless cup of warm broth later that evening. No one cries. No one claps. No one asks her if she's ready. It's not about readiness. It's about rhythm. In her world, a woman's body is a kind of field, meant to yield what it can, while it can, again and again, until it doesn't anymore. No one says this aloud. They don't have to. She already knows. You'd think that with time it might get easier, that the nerves would dull, or that the pain would find a predictable rhythm and stop catching her off guard. But no, this body, still slender beneath all the layers, still aches like it's learning everything new from scratch. The swollen ankles, the midnight cramps, the shortness of breath, the way she sometimes cries in the pantry and blames it on the onions. She knows what to expect. That's not the same as being ready. And still, the household doesn't pause for her. The loom still calls. The goats still need tending. Meals don't cook themselves, and toddlers don't stop needing to be wiped or rocked or told for the 100th time not to put ashes in their mouth. She's needed every hour, even now when her body is already giving something else to the future. At night, she lies on her side in the dark, one hand pressed against the swell of her belly, not in wonder, not in awe, but in silent negotiation. A simple thought, not this time. Please not this time. She's had 2 live births, one stillborn, one who made it through winter only to slip away with the spring melt, fever and quiet whimpering that never stopped. Death doesn't arrive with warning here. It's not dramatic or cinematic. It comes in little moments. A baby refusing the breast, a child breathing too fast, a mother's bleeding that doesn't slow. She knows the odds, and yet she gets up each day, wraps her shawl over her shoulders, and returns to the rhythm of weaving, of nursing, of feeding, of aching. No applause, no fanfare, just quiet strength no one calls brave. Sometimes, when she's churning butter or scraping lichen from the stones near the well, her eyes drift across the road. She sees boys pass through, men now, some from nearby farms, some from longboats just returning from distant shores. Laughter floats on the wind, rough and bright and far away from her life. She wonders if he's among them. The boy from the boatyard. She used to think of him daily. The way his hands shaped wood like magic. The way he once smiled at her before being scolded. The way her chest used to feel too tight whenever she saw him walk by. But it's been years now. He's probably married, or dead, or in some place far away with a name she's never heard and a coastline she'll never see. And she, well, she can't even remember the sound of his voice anymore. Only the feeling, that strange, wild flutter in her chest, that dizzy, ridiculous hope. How foolish it seems now. Back in the longhouse, the children tug on her skirts. One is teething. One wants her doll mended. Another complains of an itchy rash. Her mother-in-law is shouting something about the goat's hoof being split. And the porridge is burning, again. She sets aside the wool, moves on instinct, puts out the fire, dabs a salve, distracts the child, kisses a forehead, soothes a cry. This is what her life is, not a saga, not a poem, just a patchwork of aching hips, unfinished chores, and soft lullabies hummed with cracked lips. And the baby inside her, it kicks. Life insists, even when she doesn't. Sometimes at night, when everyone's asleep and the wind presses softly against the wooden walls, she touches her stomach and whispers the things she can't say aloud in daylight. Things like, "I'm scared, I'm tired. I don't know if I can do this again." No one hears her. Not really. But maybe the baby does. Maybe the silence does. She's not angry. Not exactly. There's no one to be angry at. Not the gods. Not her husband. Not her mother, who lived the same. Not her daughter, who may one day carry this same heavy future. It's just the way of things. It always has been. Love, after all, was for sagas. And sagas weren't written for girls like her. They were written for warriors and wanderers, for kings and slayers, for gods and monsters. She just keeps the fire going, so they all have somewhere to come back to. But if you asked her, really asked, she might confess something small, something fragile, that sometimes when everyone's asleep and the moon is just a sliver and the frost hasn't yet claimed the eaves, she still dreams of him, the boy with the sea wind in his hair. Just once, just for a moment, she dreams that she ran after him, that she chose differently, that someone, anyone, ever asked her what she wanted, and that in some other life she said it, out loud. Hey again, still here? Still awake? Or maybe this is the part of the night where the edges of sleep start to blur with the story, where dreams and memory mix a little. That's okay, let it wash over you. Tonight, we're nearing the end of this quiet little life. Our girl, the one who watched the neighbor boy hammer boats and braided her dreams into her own hair, she's no longer a girl, she's a mother now. And her daughter? Well, her daughter is 13, and she's beginning to braid her own hair. It starts on a cold morning, the kind that creaks through the bones before the sun even rises. She stirs from sleep in the longhouse, careful not to wake the baby. Well, not a baby anymore, just the youngest. The fire's low, ash white. The wind whistles through the thatch like a memory, and there, on the far side of the hearth, her daughter sits with her back to the coals. Dark hair, nearly to her waist now. Fingers clumsy but focused. Tying, twisting, pulling. A braid. The exact kind she once practiced herself long ago while her mother stirred stew and the goats stamped outside in the frost. Time doesn't move in straight lines out here. It folds. She doesn't interrupt her daughter, just watches. At 13, a girl isn't quite a child anymore, but she's not safe yet either. Not from the world, not from what comes next. And in her daughter's eyes, wide, still full of that soft, painful kind of hope, she sees it. That look, the one she used to wear, like maybe love was real, like maybe someone would ask what she wanted, like maybe, just maybe, life would offer a different path than the one her mother walked. Poor thing, she doesn't stand a chance either. Later that morning, the girl runs to the stream to fetch water. She laughs at something her brother says. She skips one step across the icy mud, almost slipping, but not quite. She hums while she works. It's some old lullaby, the kind her mother sang when she was still small enough to fit on a single lap. And watching her now, tall, gangly, full of questions she hasn't voiced yet, her mother wants to freeze this moment, to bottle it, to whisper, "Don't grow up, don't learn what I've learned." But of course, she doesn't. Mothers in this world don't get to be prophets, only witnesses. That afternoon, a neighbor stops by, brings a pouch of dried cod and a comment about how the girl's filling out nicely. Another mother might have smiled and nodded. Part of the game, the exchange of pleasantries disguised as plans. But she doesn't smile. She just thanks the woman quietly and changes the subject. Later, after the stew is stirred and the children are fed and the laundry is hung near the fire to dry, she takes her daughter's face in both hands and says very softly, "Don't talk to that man again." The girl blinks, surprised, confused. She nods, unsure what she did wrong. And then she goes back to practicing her braids. A few days later, her daughter comes back from the market glowing. "I saw a boy," she whispers, cheeks flushed. "He gave me a carved comb. He didn't even ask for anything, just gave it to me." She pulls the comb from her cloak. It's plain, bone white, shaped like a fish. Her mother holds it in her palm. It's small, delicate, pointless. And then, gently, she hands it back. No lecture, no scolding, just silence. Because what could she possibly say? That she once felt the same thing for someone who carved boats instead of combs. That she cried quietly on her wedding night and never kissed the one she loved. What good would that do? That night she can't sleep. She lies awake beside her husband, the man who's been steady, decent, predictable. The man who snores when the wind is strong and wakes only to ask about the goat feed or the roof pitch. He's never hurt her, but he's never loved her either. Not like that. She stares up at the rafters, and in her mind, she hears her daughter's voice again. "He gave me a comb." Like it meant something. Like it was a key to a door that didn't exist. Winter deepens. The braids in her daughter's hair grow more elaborate. Loops, twists, tiny beads sewn in at the base. Her fingers move faster now, more confident. One evening, she calls out, "Mama, can I braid yours?" She sits on the stool near the fire while her daughter kneels behind her. Little fingers tug, separate, pull. Her scalp tingles. And for the briefest moment, she's 13 again, sitting behind her own mother, watching the frost gather on the window ledge, wondering if that boy from the boatyard would be at the market. "You're quiet," her daughter says. "I'm just remembering," she replies. "Something sad?" "No," she lies. "Something warm." The truth is, there's no room for sad in this life. Only spinning, only firewood, only wet wool that needs drying and mouths that need feeding. But watching her daughter there, wide-eyed, braid tied off with a strip of dyed thread, she aches with a kind of helplessness too big for words. Not just for herself, but for what's coming, because the girl is 13, and soon the neighbors will speak more loudly, and the cod and goat offers will stop being jokes. And one day there will be a man by the fire with her daughter's name on his tongue, and he'll shake hands with her husband, and there will be stew and barley bread and congratulations. And her daughter, her bright, delicate, dreaming daughter, will look down at her hands, quietly braiding her fingers together, and understand what kind of life she's just been given. Poor thing. She doesn't stand a chance either. If you've made it this far, thank you. We followed her from the braid-stiff chill of girlhood to the long, quiet road of duty. We watched her fall in love with a boy she never kissed, marry a man she didn't choose, and raise children through winters that didn't always let them live. And now? Well, she's still here. Let's take one last look. The girl you met all those chapters ago. She's sitting by the hearth again. But this time, she's not braiding hair. She's brushing ashes from her lap. And her hands. They're no longer young. Her fingers are knotted now, like the old apple trees that cling to the edge of the pasture. Stiff in the morning, sore by night. Her back curves slightly forward from years of carrying babies, firewood, and grief. But still, she's here. The longhouse is quieter these days, children grown, husband gone, buried beneath a cairn she helped stack herself. Her youngest lives in the next settlement over. The rest scattered like dandelion seeds. Some made it across the sea, some didn't. She doesn't ask for much anymore. Just a warm cup, a steady fire, and for her knees not to ache quite so much in the morning. Visitors come by from time to time. One of her sons brings meat, A neighbor's child asks for stories. A healer stops to trade herbs for spun wool. People treat her kindly, respectfully, in the way old women sometimes are, once they've become a part of the furniture in other people's memories. She's always been here, they say. They mean it fondly. And they're right. She has. Sometimes when the wind howls hard through the rafters, she sees ghosts in the smoke above the fire. Not scary ones, just the versions of herself she never got to be. The girl who ran after the boy from the boatyard. The woman who lived near the sea and carved combs instead of scrubbing pots. The mother who didn't lose her third child. The girl who said no. None of those lives happened. But sometimes she wonders. She wonders what would have changed if someone, anyone, had asked her what she wanted back then. What if she had said no to the man with the soft boots and loud voice? What if she'd spoken up before the first time she was sent to share a bed she hadn't chosen? What if she'd run? Where would she be now? Would her hands still ache? Would she have learned to swim? Would someone have loved her, really, deeply, the way the sagas said people could? She doesn't have answers, only questions, but that's all right. Some stories are made of silence. She's not bitter, not exactly. Bitterness is sharp, fresh. It burns in the mouth. What she feels is softer, older. A quiet ache that lives somewhere behind her ribs like a song you can't remember the words to. She hums sometimes, especially when she's alone. Bits of lullabies, a verse from a winter ballad, a melody she made up herself once while rocking her third baby in the middle of a storm. The song didn't save anything, but it made the night less lonely. She watches her granddaughters now, young, long-legged, full of motion, hair plaited tight, cheeks flushed with the cold. They laugh with their heads thrown back. They whisper secrets she doesn't ask about. She sees herself in them, sees the start of the same cycle. She hopes, quietly, that things are different now, that someone, somewhere, is breaking that long, unspoken pattern. But she doesn't ask. She just stirs the fire and watches. There's no poetry written about her, no runestones carved in her name, no songs passed from skald to skald about the woman who spun, fed, mended, birthed, buried, and spun again. But she knows what she did. She kept the hearth warm. She held babies to her chest even when her own body ached. She wept without sound and then went back to cooking. She buried her husband, her child, her youth, and kept going. No legend will remember her name, but the longhouse did not fall, and that means something. On warm days, she walks to the stream. Not far, just to where the water moves slow and the moss is soft enough for sitting. She watches the current and listens to the wind, the birds, the far-off bleating of goats. And sometimes, just sometimes, she sees a shape in her mind. A crooked grin, a carved boat, sea wind tangled in the air. It's just a flicker, a memory, a shadow of a thought. The boy from the boatyard. She never spoke to him, never kissed him, never even knew if he liked her back. But somehow, after all this time, he remains the warmest maybe in her heart. Not because he was special, not because he would have saved her, but because he was hers, if only for a few secret, silent afternoons. And then the breeze shifts, the goats call, the sun moves down behind the tree line. She stands up slowly with a wince and a grunt, brushes moss from her skirt, and walks home. One careful step at a time. She's not remembered as a lover, or a dreamer, or a poet. She's remembered as the old one by the fire. And maybe that's all right. She lived, quietly, properly. She was good, like they told her to be. But still, in the softest part of the night when everyone else is asleep and the coals glow low and the world is still, she sometimes wonders, what if? That's the end of her story. Not the dramatic kind, not the kind with swords or songs, just the kind most women lived, unmarked, unchosen, but real. That was her life, not a saga, not a love story, just a quiet thread woven into the fabric of a world that rarely asked women what they wanted. She was never a hero, never the center of a poem, but she was strong and kind, and she kept going, even when no one was watching. If you're still here, thank you for staying with her, for listening, for caring about a girl from a long time ago who didn't get to choose her path, but walked it anyway. If this story moved you, even a little, I'd love if you'd tap the like button or leave a comment. Maybe tell me where you're listening from, or what part of the story lingered in your chest. And if you want more quiet stories like this, about lives almost forgotten, consider subscribing. I'll keep telling them, slowly, softly, one at a time. Until next time, sleep well.